Hey everybody, welcome to week 6. I'm going to make this short and sweet because I know you've got a lot of stuff going on here. We're running through this semester very, very quickly. 2.5 weeks left, which is awesome. There's a lot of work left to be done, but as of right now, I'm really happy with the work you've been doing. I think even those of you who have been falling behind, you're catching up, which is encouraging. So I want to encourage you all. You're doing a good job. Now, on to what we're talking about this week. Fallacies. Okay, what do we mean by fallacies? Well, in logic, we talked about induction last week. We're moving now on to fallacies. So in logic, these are errors in our argumentation, or errors in our logic. So let me illustrate that with a point from this weekend. So up here in Western New York, I watched some television and lamented yet another loss by my beloved Buffalo Bills. You can see my shirt there. And it was weird. Why was it weird? Well, you know, I wore my t-shirt, and yet they still blew a huge lead against the Oakland Raiders. So what the heck's going on here? Whenever I wear my shirt, the Bills win. Okay, well, obviously, this is fallacious, okay? There's no real connection there. I'm drawing a questionable cause, which is a specific kind of fallacy, specifically a causal fallacy, as you can guess. One of those things does not necessarily lead to the other. Wearing a shirt does not mean that my beloved team is going to win or anything like that. Sadly, I wish that were the case. So this is a very common kind of fallacy, a questionable cause, causal fallacy. In the lecture notes for this week, there are 3 different categories of fallacies. When I learned logic, I learned them differently. I learned them as causal fallacies, fallacies of relevance, and fallacies of generalization. They're titled a little differently in our lecture notes, but basically they're the same. So fallacies are errors in our argumentation. Specifically, these are informal fallacies. Formal fallacies are something a little different. Those are errors in how we craft our argument itself and how we draw conclusions from it. Informal fallacies usually take place because we become heavily kind of emotionally tied to our arguments, and that causes errors for us. So let me give you some examples. Let's say that I'm arguing with my neighbor about taxation, and I'm saying to my neighbor, you know, I really want to have taxes lowered. I think it's going to be better for me saving money for my kids' college fund, and it's going to be easier to pay our mortgage, and yada, yada, yada. And my neighbor says, oh, well, you don't really care about kids starving, or, you know, schools falling apart, or old ladies resorting to eating cat food for dinner or something like that. That's a ridiculous argument. People make those all the time. This is called a straw man argument. So what my neighbor is doing is taking my argument, twisting it into an extreme version of something, and then attacking the extreme version. Not really attacking my argument, but trying to make it sound crazier than it is and attacking that version of it. This is a fallacy of relevance. This is a straw man argument. You see a lot of these kinds of arguments in politics, and we just got through this really, really intense election, and we saw fallacies flying all over the place from both camps. So you would hear from maybe Democrats that, oh my gosh, you elect this guy, before you know it, we're going to be, you know, ticking off the Chinese, and then before you know it, our navies are going to be going at it, and then we're going to be at war, and then it's going to be a nuclear war, and everyone's going to die. And then you had people on the right who were looking at Hillary and saying, oh, if you elect her, first thing she's going to take away your guns, and then she's going to make it harder to, you know, worship freely in your church, and then it's free speech is out of the window, and before long it's George Orwell's 1984, and everything's falling apart. These are slippery slope fallacies. If you do this, then this gets worse and worse and worse, and it spirals, and you're slipping down this slope. These are fallacies of relevance as well. But you saw these kinds of things all the time. You saw fallacies, the either or, the false antithesis fallacy. Either you vote for Hillary Clinton or you vote for Donald Trump. There's nothing else. Well, we know that that's not true. You know, you could vote for a third party. You could not vote. You could write in a candidate depending on what state you're in. This kind of fallacy, the either or, says it's either this or that. There's no other options, right? But you see how, in just the ones that I mentioned to you right now, these are very emotion-laden and emotion-driven. Our passions get up, and we start to fall into errors, mistakes in our logic. We let our emotions take over, and we let our reason kind of take a back seat. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to try to address these to better understand how they work, to name them and identify them, so that hopefully we can avoid doing these things. Let me tell you, we fall into fallacious argumentation all the time. I do, you do, we all do, okay? We need to be aware of why and how to avoid these things. So you're going to be looking, it should be kind of fun, at advertising. Choosing some sort of advertisement and figuring out which specific fallacy is being employed in that, basically that argument, that advertisement. So look at your lecture notes, look at the textbook, and keep that open as you're looking through, going on YouTube or watching television or something like that and looking at advertisements and figuring out specifically which fallacy is being used. Because if you don't name that in your post, I'm going to ask you, okay, which fallacy is it? And then discuss it a little bit. How does it work? Do they, kind of employ some sort of stereotyping in the process of this argument? How do we avoid these things going forward? Why are they so common or so pervasive, that kind of thing. So that's what you're going to be doing. There is another very short discussion post in this week that has to do with your research paper. You're just going to be kind of bouncing ideas off of each other as fellow students and kind of presenting your argument and what you're going to be talking about in your paper, and then having your fellow students comment on it. And so that should be interesting. It should be pretty easy as well. You're also going to be doing a reflection, as you usually have been doing, and a quiz as well. But what I've been seeing so far is really good. I'm really looking forward to seeing these papers in another week, and make sure that you are working on it so that by the end of, not this week, but next week, they're ready for me. They're uploaded to ePortfolio so that I can take a look at them and grade them. But I want to encourage you. You're doing really good work. I'm really happy with what I've been seeing in discussion boards. Again, try to get those posted by Tuesday at first, the first post by Tuesday if you can. And so I want to encourage you going forward. Just keep up the good work, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you have for me this week. Thanks, folks.